Ever wish you could just like reach back in time and get advice straight from, someone who really gets it, someone who's dealt with pressure most of us can't even fathom?
Yeah, like who are we talking? Who's got that kind of resume?
Well, today we're tapping into the wisdom of a Roman emperor.
Whoa, okay, no, that's a deep cut. You're not kidding about, straight from the source. Which emperor are we talking about?
Marcus Aurelius. And not just any emperor, right? This guy, he wasn't just running an empire, which is already like a full-time gig and then some, but he was grappling with like the big stuff, life's big questions. And he wrote them down in his personal reflections, his meditations.
Okay, meditations, like journaling. I'm intrigued already. So we're not talking grand speeches or like propaganda here. This is personal stuff.
Exactly. These were private thoughts, which honestly to me makes them even more fascinating to explore. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the mind of a guy facing wars, rebellions, the whole 9 yards, and yet still carving out time for introspection and philosophy.
And that's the thing that always blows me away about Marcus Aurelius. He was a Stoic, right? And Stoicism, to put it simply, it's this idea that you focus on what you can control, your own thoughts and reactions, especially when everything around you feels chaotic, which, let's be real, is a pretty relevant concept for like everyone. I mean, life in the fast lane.
Right. I feel like that resonates so much with like how we live today.
Yeah.
Always trying to find that calm in the middle of the storm.
Totally. And what's so cool is that he actually addresses this directly. In his meditations, he writes, "The rational commanding part, as it alone can stir up and turn itself, so it maketh both itself to be and everything that happeneth to appear unto itself as it will itself." It's like this really dense way of saying...
Yeah, what's he getting at? Break that down for us.
He's basically saying our minds are this inner space where we have agency, even when everything else feels totally out of control. It's like this idea that we have the power to choose our response no matter what life throws at us. Like we have this inner citadel.
Okay, I like that, the inner citadel. It's like we can fortify our minds. And that is honestly incredibly empowering. That idea that like we're not just victims of circumstance. But he didn't stop there, did he? Aurelius also went deep on a question that I feel like is like universal. This idea of, is there any order to the universe, or is it just, chaos? Like, what's it all about?
Right. It's the age-old question, right? He lays out these two options. Either the universe is just a jumbled mess of random events, like no purpose, or it's governed by what he calls providence. And this providence, it's like this divine order or reason, some might call it God. It's been debated for centuries, right? Fate versus free will, destiny, all that. And here's Aurelius in the thick of running an empire, wrestling with this very thing. It's kind of humbling, actually.
It is. And it goes to show, even emperors have these same existential questions.
Yeah.
So what did he land on? Which side did he take?
He ultimately found solace, like real comfort, in the idea of a guiding force of providence. He writes, "But if the latter be, then am not I religious in vain? Then will I be quiet and patient and put my trust in him who is the governor of all." It's this powerful reminder that even someone in his position with all the power and responsibility still sought meaning in something larger than himself.
It's that idea that we're all searching for something, right? Like we all crave that sense of meaning, that sense of belonging in this grand scheme of things. But the question becomes like, how do we actually find it? How do we tap into that? Especially when, let's face it, everyday life can feel pretty chaotic, especially when we're dealing with difficult people or just stressful situations.
Oh, for sure. And Aurelius, he had some pretty insightful thoughts on that too. He was big on the importance of like taking a step back, like hitting pause when things get overwhelming. You know how he puts it, he uses this analogy of a stepmother and a mother. So like you should respect both, right? But your true mother, she's the source of solace, of refuge. And that's what he says philosophy should be for us, this source of comfort and guidance, that safe space.
I love that. So basically like find your center. Find your mental safe space, that inner citadel we were talking about. It's like almost, what's that word? Mindful.
Totally. It's like he predicted mindfulness practices, right?
Okay.
That whole idea of taking a moment to just breathe, observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment, and then choose a calmer, more measured response. It's straight from Aurelius's playbook. But get this, he goes even further. He talks about this practice that's crazy relevant to us today.
Okay, now you've got me curious. What is it?
He talks about this idea of stripping away illusions, like really seeing through the BS.
Ooh, okay. I like where this is going. Give us an example. How do we strip away illusions?
So he does this exercise where he mentally reduces things to their most basic components. Like imagine a delicious gourmet meal, right? He'd be like, nope, that's just the carcass of a fish. Or like fine clothing, expensive fabrics, he'd call it sheep's hairs, dyed with the blood of a shellfish.
Wow. So he's like cutting through all the fancy marketing, getting to the core of it.
Exactly. And it's not about being cynical, it's about perspective. Like even something as universally enjoyed as sex, he describes it in a way that makes you go, huh, is that all it is? And that's his point. He's trying to help us see past the surface, to detach from those fleeting desires and anxieties that, let's be real, rule a lot of our lives.
And especially in today's world where we're bombarded with advertising, social media, and like endless opportunities for comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, his advice is, if anything, more relevant than ever, right?
100%. You know, we haven't even gotten to his thoughts on like death and the impermanence of everything, but hey, we only have so much time.
All right. We could do a whole nother deep dive on that. So we've talked about controlling our minds, taking a beat, finding solace in philosophy, seeing through all the illusions. Anything else we can take away from this ancient Roman emperor turned like self-help guru?
Well, he closes with this really intriguing point about learning from others, even those we might not expect. He specifically mentions Crates and Xenocrates, and these guys were, well, let's just say they were characters. We'll save them for another deep dive.
Oh, a little cliffhanger. I like it.
The takeaway is wisdom can come from the most unexpected sources, always be open.
That's such a good reminder. We always have something to learn. Always be a student. So, big picture, Marcus Aurelius gives us a ton to think about, right?
Yeah.
But, like, if I had to pick one major takeaway from this whole deep dive, it's that we have a lot more control than we think we do, especially over our own minds. And like Aurelius would say, the key to navigating this crazy, chaotic world often lies in choosing how we see things, shifting our perspective.
Inner citadel, right?
Through the storms and the floods, I'll hold my ground while others falter. I'll never back down. With a heart of steel and a will so strong, I'll stand tall. I'll sing and I'll sing. I won't be shaken, I won't be swayed. I'll face the fire unafraid. With a bendable resolve, I'll never break. I'll stand my ground for goodness sake. In the face of adversity, I won't gain. With every step I take, my spirit won't wane. Undefeatable, I'm undefeatable. In the apples of the night where the shadows play, Marcus Aurelius guiding in a stoic way. If it's not right, don't do it in the rock guitar. In the symphony of virtue, we'll go far. Think of life as a bonus in the rock and roll. A dead man's view, a tale to be told. Very little is needed for a happy life. In the guitar strings, we cut through the strife. I won't be shaken, I won't be swayed. I'll face the fire unafraid. Unbreakable resolve, I'll never break. I'll stand my ground for goodness sake. In the face of adversity, I won't cave. With every step I take, my spirit won't wane. Undefeatable, I'm undefeatable. Try praying differently, change the melody. Instead of craving, find the harmony. The memory of everything overwhelmed in time. In the rock ballad we find the climb. Do not indulge in dreams, reckoning up the blessings true. In the rock rhythm find what's in you. Read with diligence, not a superficial sound. In the rock verse, let the wisdom resound. I won't be shaken, I won't be swayed. I'll face the fire unafraid. Unbreakable resolve, I'll never break. I'll stand my ground for goodness sake. In the face of adversity, I won't cave. With every step I take, my spirit won't wane. Undefeatable, I'm undefeatable.
So my purpose, as I started going through this journey, instead of looking at like, woe is me, God, man, why, man, why? I started looking at it as, it's the perfect training ground. You knew exactly what you were doing. You put me in every situation possible to tell a story that needed to be told. People don't really understand what that is. When you're in the worst environment possible, the worst situation possible, and everybody's looking like, God, man, I hope this ends. And you see that. Time slows down and you see that. You're feeling that. Everybody has that look on their face like, God, this got to go. I don't want to be anymore. And when I started realizing, I started playing mind games. And I was like, you know what? I bet these brothers are looking at us, judging themselves about when they were going through Hell Week. About, let me see, I'm looking at Goggins right now. I was better than him. I was like, okay. You're going to judge me, right? All right. So this is what I'm going to do to you. They tell you how you're supposed to feel. You are feeling that way. I was like, don't let these tell you how you're supposed to feel. No, it's day one, motherfucker. This is hour one. So I was getting my boat crew all jacked up. I said, we're going to take these motherfucker souls. So when they had us doing this simple thing that guys were struggling with, I looked on the instructors' faces and it looked like someone had just with their soul. And I looked at my guys in my boat crew and I said, hey, guess what? We own space in their head. We own space. They're going to think about us tonight. We start fueling off the fact that, man, it takes 1 second of energy to steal everybody's. And then you have all the energy you need. That's all you need. You need to look at someone's eyes. You know how it is when you fight somebody and you broke that. He's like, oh God, man, I don't want to go back to the next round. And you feel like, my God, I can fight all day. I can fight all day long. That's what taking souls is. But you have to have the will, the heart, the courage to go that distance when you're exactly jacked up. You have nothing left.
There is nothing impossible to him who will try. Learn as if you were not reaching your goal and as though you were scared of missing it. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he is not. Seneca. Things are not always completely clear. You don't need to be right all the time. You learn nothing from life if you think you're right all the time.
Act as if you are already a millionaire and you'll find yourself getting richer every day. Jack Canfield.
See, these are the words of a philosopher. This is the disposition of a man who will do good to others. Here is a man who has listened to discourses, who has read what is written about Socrates as Socratic, not as the compositions of Lysias and Isocrates. I have often wondered by what arguments, not so, but by what argument. This is more exact than that. What, have you read the words at all in a different way from that in which you read little odes? For if you read them as you ought, you would not have been attending to such matters, but you would rather have been looking to these words. Anytus and Melitus are able to kill me, but they cannot harm me, and I am always of such a disposition as to pay regard to nothing of my own except to the reason which on inquiry seems to me the best. Hence, whoever heard Socrates say, I know something, and I teach. But he used to send different people to different teachers. Therefore they used to come to him and ask to be introduced to philosophy by him, and he would take them and recommend them. Not so, but as he accompanied them he would say, Hear me today discoursing in the house of Quadratus. Why should I hear you? Do you wish to show me that you put words together cleverly? You put them together, man, and what good will it do you? But only praise me. What do you mean by praising? Say to me, admirable, wonderful. Well, I say so. But if that is praise, whatever it is which philosophers mean by the name of good, what have I to praise in you? If it is good to speak well, teach me, and will praise you. What then? Ought a man to listen to such things without pleasure? I hope not. For my part, I do not listen even to a lute player without pleasure. Must I then, for this reason, stand and play the lute? Hear what Socrates says. Nor would it be seemly for a man of my age, like a young man composing addresses, to appear before you. Like a young man, he says. For in truth this small art is an elegant thing, to select words and to put them together, and to come forward and gracefully to read them or to speak. And while he is reading to say, there are not many who can do these things, I swear by all that you value. Does a philosopher invite people to hear him? As the sun himself draws men to him, or as food does not the philosopher also draw to him those who will receive benefit? What physician invites a man to be treated by him? Indeed, I now hear that even the physicians in Rome do invite patients. But when I lived there, the physicians were invited. I invite you to come and hear that things are in a bad way for you, and that you are taking care of everything, except that of which you ought to take care, and that you are ignorant of the good and the bad, and are unfortunate and unhappy. A fine kind of invitation. And yet, if the words of the philosopher do not produce this effect on you, he is dead, and so is the speaker. Rufus was used to say, if you have leisure to praise me, I am speaking to no purpose. Accordingly, he used to speak in such a way that every one of us who were sitting there supposed that someone had accused him before Rufus. He so touched on what was doing, he so placed before the eyes every man's faults. The philosopher's school, ye men, is a surgery. You ought not to go out of it with pleasure, but with pain. For you are not in sound health when you enter. One has dislocated his shoulder, another has an abscess, a third a fistula, and a fourth a headache. Then do I sit and utter to you little thoughts and exclamations that you may praise me and go away, one with his shoulder in the same condition in which he entered, another with his head still aching, and a third with his fistula or his abscess just as they were? Is it for this then that young men shall quit home and leave their parents and their friends and kinsmen and property, that they may say to you, wonderful, when you are uttering your exclamations? Did Socrates do this, or Zeno, or Cleanthes? What then? Is there not the hortatory style? Who denies it? As there is the style of refutation, and the didactic style. Who then ever reckoned a fourth style with these, the style of display? What is the hortatory style? To be able to show both to one person and to many the struggle in which they are engaged, and that they think more about anything than about what they really wish. For they wish the things which lead to happiness, but they look for them in the wrong place. In order that this may be done, 1,000 seats must be placed, and men must be invited to listen, and you must ascend the pulpit in a fine robe or cloak, and describe the death of Achilles. Cease, I entreat you by the gods, to spoil good words and good acts as much as you can. Nothing can have more power in exhortation than when the speaker shows to the hearers that he has need of them. But tell me who, when he hears you reading or discoursing, is anxious about himself, or turns to reflect on himself, or when he has gone out says, the philosopher hit me well, I must no longer do these things. But does he not, even if you have a great reputation, say to some person, he spoke finely about Xerxes? And another says, no, but about the battle of Thermopylae? Is this listening to a philosopher?
Courage to act. Part of being hungry when you've been defeated, it takes courage to start over again. I used to do door-to-door sales, and